Hi, I'm Amy at EuroluxHome.com. Welcome back to our historical overview of the styles of European antique furniture. If you have enjoyed learning about history and antiques, remember to like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and maybe even share it with a friend who might also enjoy learning about European antiques. So today we're talking about the arts and crafts style, sometimes called the Eastlake style. Dates about mid to late 19th century, and it was founded in England. But in order for you to understand what the arts and crafts movement is about, it's important to look at what else is happening culturally in the 19th century in England. We have Queen Victoria on the throne, and the prevailing style is Victorian. Now, I do recommend going back and watching our Victorian video where we give lots of examples and details. But in general, the Victorian style is about everything all at once. The Victorians loved ornateness and luxury. It was a romantic and exotic style. It's a combination of all of the previous styles, Gothic, Renaissance, Rococo, Neoclassicism, Empire, all mixed in together. And the Victorians just loved using very ornate materials, patterned upholstery, patterned wallpaper, patterned rugs, pattern. More is more is more. It's very ornate. And so, of course, you could imagine that when the pendulum swings and you go all the way to one side where you have very ornate, very exuberant style, the pendulum is going to swing back the other way. So the arts and crafts movement was a reaction against this very overly ornate Victorian style. But it's also important to look at what else is happening culturally, because art, architecture, and the decorative arts are always a reflection of what is happening culturally in a society. So we've talked about the Industrial Revolution that started at the end of the 18th century in England, and by 1840 had spread across Europe. It completely impacted the economy and production. It was using steam tools that created different production processes. And so it also gave rise, the workers had more money, and so demand increased for decorative goods. So we have a greater demand and we have ease of production, which means that production reached scale. So there was a great deal more of production than the previous way furniture had been produced, which was on a bespoke basis, one piece at a time. Now you have lots of pieces being made, and you have the rise of furniture stores where you could go in and actually buy whole suites of furniture. And that made furniture more affordable for the common man, and it was also more available because we did have the rise of the railway system in Europe, and so more people had access to better priced furniture. So that's the benefit of the Industrial Revolution. But of course, you could imagine there were a lot of critics of the Industrial Revolution. And the primary criticism was that it took away the joy of creating. It took away artistic expression and creativity, the joy of crafting something by hand. There was the thought that the qualities were not as good as when things were made one by one, but when they were made more on a mass-produced level, that the critics thought that the quality was not as good. And there was also a concern about the conditions of the workers in the factories. You have the invention of the assembly line. So no longer are people just making one thing completely from start to finish. Instead, they're doing their little part, and then it moves on, and they just do that little part. And so it was thought that these conditions on the assembly line was really a dehumanization of the workers. And so there was a reaction against this mechanical nature of the Industrial Revolution. And that is what really gave rise to the arts and crafts movement. Now, the man who was really thought to be the father of the arts and crafts movement is William Morris. Now, William Morris was an interior designer, and he started his own company, which ultimately was called Morris and Company. And he created textiles, wallpaper, and even designed furniture. So he was making home goods, but he believed in using traditional production methods. So not using automatic tooling or processing, instead going back to this idea of a bespoke basis where something is made by hand by a craftsperson. And he really believed in using very high quality materials. Now, he felt that this was a way to improve the living conditions for the workers, that if they had beautiful, well-made objects in their homes that they would use for everyday life, that would improve their lives. A bit utopian, but ironically, his concern for the workers meant that the goods, for the most part, were a little too expensive for the common man. But at any rate, that was what his goal was to bring back handcrafted things. Now, William Morris had gone to Oxford for his education, and while he was there, he met what's called the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood. One of the main proponents of that was an artist by the name of Rossetti. And Rossetti and the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood of painters had really turned to early Renaissance painting, thinking that that was really getting back to the roots of what beautiful art was. And they were very interested in abundant details, in vibrant colors, and very complex designs. So William Morris, because he went to school with some of these painters, was very influenced by these ideas. So when he started his company, he really was influenced by this type of art. And what he is really known for is repeated patterns found in nature that he used then in his textiles and the wallpapers. Now, the Victorians absolutely love his very busy patterns, and they just threw in all of his very busy patterned wallpaper into their designs as well. But that wasn't William Morris's goal. He wanted to have just these very bright, vibrant, complex designs and then add more simple furniture. Now, you can visit his home in London. It's called the Red House, and we'll put a few photos up of what the interior looks like. So you can see that it is patterned on the walls, but the furniture itself is much plainer and simpler. Now, we can't talk about the arts and crafts movement without also talking about Charles Locke Eastlake. He was an architect and also a furniture designer, and he published a book called The Hints on Household Tastes in Britain. It was published in 1868, and it was extremely influential. It also emphasized a style that is much simpler, more straight lines. He really did not like that busyness or the ornateness of the Victorian style, and instead he really liked straight lines with very shallow carvings. He believed his style was really all about simplicity, utility, and craftsmanship, really bringing back that handcrafted nature. Now, ironically, because he focused on straight lines and very shallow carvings, very simple furniture, it was super easy to mass produce. And so some of the early catalog companies, Sears and Roebuck and Montgomery Ward, actually created Eastlake furniture and sold it just inundated the United States with these very inexpensive, um, more cheaply made Eastlake furniture. So while that was Eastlake's goal, was to have high quality materials and very simple lines, it actually became mass produced. But you can find examples of the Eastlake style. We have been showing you a few here next to me. So Sears and Roebuck and Montgomery Ward were mostly American manufacturers, and that was part of that marketing, was using the catalog sales. So let's turn now and we'll talk about how the arts and crafts movement spread to the US. But it went by a different name in the US. So the American arts and crafts style is called the mission style, and sometimes it's called the craftsman style. Now, it's called the mission style because it was very influenced by Spanish mission architecture, especially in California. Simple, clean lines, very basic furniture was used inside of the Spanish missions. And that went right in line with this idea of simple utilitarian furniture, because Eastlake's book had been he wrote a new version for the United States market that came out at the end of the 19th century. So Eastlake's ideas were now spreading in the US. This idea of simplicity, of using high quality materials, really the hallmarks of the arts and crafts style are simple straight lines, high quality workmanship, and visible construction elements. For instance, this piece behind me, you can actually see the wooden pegs. And so wooden peg construction was shown on the pieces. You would also see where joinery would come together. Sometimes the dovetailed joints of drawers were actually exposed. So exposing how the piece was constructed in order to show you how the craftsman was putting the piece together. Now, an example of interior design of the mission style or the craftsman style in the US is called the Gamble House. And that was made by two brothers, the Green brothers, and is in California. You can tour it today. Great example of what the craftsman style looked like here in the US. But we can't talk about the craftsman style or the mission style in the US without talking about Gustav Stickley. Sometimes it's even called the Stickley style. So by this time, we're now moving into the early 20th century in the US. And Gustav Stickley was an American furniture designer located in New York. And he created his own workshop where he would produce furniture. And he named his business the Craftsman Workshops. And he also created a magazine called The Craftsman. And it was really much like Martha Stewart's magazine today, where he wrote articles about home decor, of how to live a more simple life. So really combining all of these ideas of how to use and live simply with high quality, beautiful pieces. And so the Stickley style, again, is all about simplicity, durability, creating very durable and functional pieces. The wood is unadorned and it is solid oak. So they're very substantial and very long lasting pieces. Now, unfortunately, Stickley eventually fell out of favor. People moved on, and he declared bankruptcy. But in the 1980s in the United States, the Stickley style was resurrected, and it became very popular. And now it has come back again. So the arts and crafts movement is very popular, and it's really for all of the same reasons, because today in our mass-produced culture where everything is disposable, people are really looking for handcrafted things with very high quality materials, simplicity, and long-lasting nature to things. And so that is the history of the arts and crafts movement, the arts and crafts style. As I said, sometimes called the Eastlake style. Here in the US, we often call it the mission style, sometimes the Stickley style. Lots of names for this very simple, down-to-earth style. If I can answer any additional questions for you, please feel free to reach out. I hope you've enjoyed learning about the arts and crafts style, so maybe when you're out antiquing, you'll be able to recognize some of these straight lines and some of the hallmarks of the style. Remember to like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and maybe even share it with a friend. See you next time.